What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the Fallout TV show. We got a bunch of info today, and I'm not going to do so much of a deep dive, but more or less talk about my excitement. This thing is coming in just a few months, and it actually looks extremely good, which is maybe shocking. And I feel like as time is going on, and while you're having all of these, games turned into things, you're seeing either, they surprisingly work, or maybe not surprisingly. I think you go into all of these things, or at least I do, thinking, okay, probably a bad idea. Let's just leave it alone as a game. That's how I do it. I really don't want these things to jump over because there's a chance you absolutely destroy it in a negative way. Now you had Uncharted, which was like so-so. You had something like Twisted Metal, which I think actually was extremely good. But, for every Twisted Metal that just actually is surprisingly excellent, you also have something like the Halo TV show, which, I gotta be honest, okay? One of the things that stood out today from Fallout is the looks. In fact, I picked this look at this. Look at how good this looks. This is why I picked this picture as the background. The images that we got of the TV show for Fallout look absolutely spectacular. And being on Amazon, I guess there's another thing, right? You got a 50-50 shot. I think sometimes Amazon showrunners just absolutely hate the properties that they are adapting, and they absolutely destroy it. Again, in a negative way. I use destroy and crushing sometimes equally. Or they're surprisingly good. And I would also say, though, the earlier screenshots to kind of calm myself down, because when I saw these, I was like, yes, I'm ready for a Fallout show, and I think they can do it. And I still believe that, but I do have to remember, Halo looked fine, okay? The screenshots of Halo, now they were saying some worrisome stuff, okay? They were hinting at Master Chief's face in the earliest interviews on that show, okay? It ended up happening freaking episode 1 at the end of it, or maybe it was episode 2. They jumped the gun very, and that was the least of their worries, was showing his freaking face. It was other things. So I do have to say, for as good as it looks are not everything. In fact, they are very, very little. I mean, yes, if it looks low budget, that is probably going to be a problem, but it's more about the story, the characters, the tone. Now, the stuff that's come out today that I will kind of analyze just a little bit is the tone. So Todd Howard actually was featured in this Variety interview where he talked about, hey, a lot of the pitches for this were just trying to basically remake a game, right? Let's make Fallout 3, but let's make it a show, or let's make it a movie. And he wanted it to not be that. Tell your own thing and make it canon in the Fallout universe. So this show is canon to Fallout in general, okay? But in that kind of excerpt that he's talking about, he mentions the tone, he mentions violence, he mentions the way that violence is in Fallout, he mentions the humor, the kind of weird humor that's used in these games. So that's what I like to hear, because where I come from, me, Alex, is I'm not actually the biggest Fallout fan out there, and I've talked a little bit about my history, and one day I'm definitely going to go back and kind of experience it all. Maybe not the earliest ones just because they're so different, but Fallout 3, I don't think, I never got into the craze, let's say, as much as everybody else, okay? New Vegas was the Fallout for me, okay? That game I think is absolutely amazing, and I really love it, but Fallout 4, I actually really didn't like, 76 I didn't like, and obviously Fallout 5, eventually, in 50 years, I will end up playing it, but so I'm not a fair weather fan, I don't think, but I definitely am not into it as much as others. But I think when it comes to something like this, a TV show or a movie, an adaptation, I think you can do it. I think Fallout is maybe even similar to Twisted Metal, where it's kind of just go crazy, it has a more open playground to mess around with and tell your own stories and stuff than other things, right? Than The Last of Us. I'd say The Last of Us is harder to go in and make canon something that isn't already, right? Make your own thing. I think it's harder just because of the style or genre, I should say, of the game. A story, very story-centric, single-player, action-adventure game in The Last of Us, where you're playing as Joel, you got Ellie. That's very hard to then go make a movie or a show and just not do that, right? And they didn't, now they changed a lot in it, but it's still Joel and Ellie, right? And they're following, basically the blueprint. Whereas Fallout, and I would even say Twisted Metal, and I think that's why Twisted Metal worked. You have Sweet Tooth, or, that's not even his name, but, you have him, right? But at the same time, you introduce these new characters, and you have so many references to the games, but you don't have to play the games, because it can just tell a story, and it uses, I think, the humor and the world of Twisted Metal extremely extremely well. And I think that's why that show worked. And I think it could work here, really. I absolutely believe that. Because Fallout is not the exact same thing as Twisted Metal, but it's similar in the way that it's more about, again, as actually Todd Howard says, like, it's more about the world, it's more about the feel, it's more about the tone, but you can kind of do anything. And now there are going to be references and there's gangs and stuff that are in Fallout and whatnot, so you are going to have some connections to what we've already seen, but generally you can just go off and you could tell your own story. So that idea, which I do think has been proven now with Twisted Metal to have worked, and I think they can do it here, mixed with 50-50 shot. These showrunners even care about the properties, but Bethesda is so invested. Bethesda is like watching over them, at least that's what they're saying. So I'd like to believe Todd Howard wouldn't let them murder this in front of him. At the same time, though, like Halo, and I want to bring that up, Halo's terrible. The Halo show, I'll fight you over it. I actually reviewed every episode of the Halo show on this channel, so you can go back and watch those. That show is an abomination. And so you could say, like, how could you possibly mess that up? How could you like, if Xbox had anything to do with that show, how do you let that happen? So for as good as it's looking now, you do have to remember that things can change on the drop of a dime, okay? But at the same time, it does look good, and I am going to give it a chance, absolutely. I will be watching it, and, I kind of do forget this thing exists in the first place, but hey, I can definitely do, episode reviews on the channel. I think that'd be a lot of fun, so maybe we'll do that on this channel, Podcast Now Plus, in February. So that should be a lot of fun, honestly. So let me know what you guys think of the show, of what you saw so far today. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and hope to see you all on the next one.